Welcome to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. At Finstrat, we provide CFO-led accounting, finance, and reporting services to assist clients monetize their business. Stick around to the end of the podcast and I'll share how you can be our next guest. Now on to the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Innovators and Investors Podcast. I'm your host, Kristian Marquez, founder and CEO of Finstrat Management. Really excited because today we have with us Danika Chilibeck, founder and CEO of Bahia AI. Danica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kristian. I'm so excited to be here.
Likewise. So why don't we start? Bahia AI, love to understand what the problem the company's focused on solving, and then what was the inspiration that got you focused with your product?
Sounds good. So Bahia AI, we offer a AI talent sourcer. Her name's Mia, and she basically handles all talent sourcing for teams that are hiring. The way we came up with the idea was about last June in 2024. I was working at a fast-growing tech company, and one of the teams that I was leading at the time was recruitment. And I also had a few roles on my team to fill. And after going through the process of talent sourcing, which basically just means finding people who are a good fit for your role and reaching out to them to see if they would be interested, I learned through personal experience that it was just a totally brutal process. I hated it. It was my least favorite part of recruitment and finding good people. And at the same time, at this company that I was working at, I was running a AI competition internally with the team. I don't have a technical background, but I did take quite the interest in AI in recent years. And, I built a few of my own GPTs, things like that. I was always tinkering on the side. And yeah, during this competition for me, I just thought of, okay, what's the thing that I like the least about my job? And at the time, it was talent sourcing. I spent about a week just finding a bunch of AI tools, stitching them together and finding a way to automate the whole process for myself and my team. And then once I saw that it was working at this company, Rewind, that I was working at, I thought, hey, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I can go out and sell this to other teams. And so me and my co-founder, Delaney, we got together and I was like, hey, I think we can make something out of this and help other teams. And then sure enough, I think we reached out to about 100 people just to see if we could get any interest. And within the first week, we already had our first paying customer. So that's where we got started.
Fantastic. I love it. So you find a very analog process that I'm sure a whole host of people can relate to, which totally makes sense. And your ability to ID your first customer within a week. Congratulations. And now you've built something that's faster, better, cheaper. I'd love to get if you can unpack, let's do a little bit of product development. What's your philosophy? How do you think about your vision of connecting organizations with great talent relative to what you started to learn as you went through the process?
Yeah, I think for me, it all comes down to just how can you make a team more efficient and focus on the things that are more strategic. So when I was looking at my team of recruiters, they have so much on their plate all the time, interviewing, stakeholder management, headcount planning, all this stuff. And really, they just don't have time to be doing outreach and reaching out, finding these candidates, contacting them, messaging them, keeping track of it all. Even as a hiring manager, it was just brutal, right? There are so many other things on the go all the time where I could have bigger impact. So really for me, it just comes down to how can we save people time? How can we get them to work on things that are a better use of their time? And really, if I just look at the laundry list of things that are on a recruiter's plate, what are those things that are just tedious, time consuming, that I can basically automate and make it faster and better and easier for them so that they can focus on the other stuff. I used to be head of operations, and my whole focus has always been on how do we improve efficiencies? Like, how do we get people to do more with less? That really is ultimately what we're always trying to optimize for. Whenever we're doing things, even at Bahia internally, it's okay. If I'm repeating the same thing 3 times, then probably something in there that I can automate, right? We really try to automate everything as much as possible every single week. So that's definitely the philosophy behind everything.
And so did you find then when it comes to curating your product roadmap that the emphasis is really on, hey, these are the things that I'm seeing? And if so, how do you marry that against the feedback that you get from your clients who are using the product?
Yeah, we definitely spend a lot of time talking to customers. Just this week, we reached out to all of our customers and booked feedback sessions with all of them in the coming weeks. We also send out a survey to everybody. Just we call it like the standard NPS survey, where you ask people, how likely are you to recommend us to others? And is there anything about the product that is you'd want to see, or how could we make this experience better for you? We certainly try to be as customer centric as possible. And that's what we're using to prioritize what the roadmap looks like. Obviously, me and Delaney have some ideas of what we think people want, but at the end of the day, our customers will know best. They're the ones that are paying us. So we always definitely make it a priority to listen to them before just going with our gut instinct on things.
For the founders in the audience, Danica, I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of times founders have really powerful visions. I think everyone attributes Henry Ford to saying something to the effect of, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. But at the end of the day, I couldn't agree more. The people who are giving you money are, have really strong opinions. And the fact that you're incorporating it, I encourage every founder who's listening to this to really take that to heart, despite all the opportunities that you see. So also love to get your perspective on building a foundation for the business. To date, what's been your experience? Have you bootstrapped, or have you raised any outside capital?
We are fully bootstrapped so far. I will say we, back in November, had a long discussion around fundraising. We started having initial conversations with people, some angels, a few VC funds, and we've had a few people also reach out just to have a coffee chat and learn a little bit about what we're building and things like that. But ultimately, after spending a few weeks doing that, we realized that we had put the brakes on selling and product development, and it was a little bit of a distraction. And then we felt the pain of that in December when it was like a slower month than usual. So I think we ultimately decided that we're going to wait for now. And really what it came down to was, I think we found really good product market fit so far. But the one thing we still need to figure out is what I call go to market fit, which is essentially what are our channels where we feel very confident where we can sell, right? And if you give us $1, we can turn it into 3 kind of thing. And yeah, although people were interested, and we definitely have some awesome angel investors that really believe in us and are ready to sign checks and things like that, which is awesome. I think Dylan and I just decided that maybe until we hit a certain revenue mark and until we have probably like our first 100 paying customers, we just want to really be hyper focused on building a product that our customers totally love, and also just figuring out that sales go to market motion a little bit more.
Fantastic. Makes total sense. You and I were talking before we started about your experience as an angel investor. If you can give us a little bit of color on what that's been like, but then also how that influenced your decision to wait until you figured out your go-to-market fit, that'd be great.
Yeah. So for me, I am an angel investor, and I would say the companies that I've personally invested in were often based on the founders. So I think especially when you're at an early stage like Bahia is right now, ultimately, it comes down to the founders. And do you think that they're capable? Do you think that they're hardworking? Are they problem solvers? Do you believe in what they're building and their vision? Luckily for me, a lot of the people that I have been able to speak to are close colleagues or friends of mine in the tech space. And maybe you couple that with a market that is a wave that you believe in, obviously, in the future of that space as well. And for us, I think I would say, yeah, the digital agent space is huge. And even at our company, we are really trying to build as much as we can without hiring like a huge amount of full-time employees. We always try to look at ways to do it digitally first. Yeah, I think likewise, when we speak to these angel investors, most of them are people that I've either worked with or that I know personally. And I think at the end of the day, they believe in us as individuals, and also they probably are interested in the space that we're building in as well. But we launched the company just over 6 months ago. So at this stage, obviously time will tell just how successful we will get with time. But yeah, I think it mostly just comes down to how much belief do you have in the founders and their ability to take it from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 100.
I think it's obviously founding team is key, because they're the ones who have to execute. And I couldn't agree more with the significance But if we can build on that, so obviously then relationships also become really important if and when the time comes that you decide to take venture capital dollars. How do you think about evaluating who you're going to let onto your cap table?
Good question. So when I was working in my previous company, the nice thing for me was that I got to sit on board meetings, and I got to sit in with the board over 2, 3 years, 3 years total. So I really got to be exposed to different types of investors and different VCs. And I think for me, looking back, they all brought something so different to the table. And when I think of the people who probably brought the most value to me, it was often people who were operators at one point in time or were ex-founders as well, especially for early stage. I think that, yeah, if I were to bring on some angel investors or even VCs, I definitely would look at people who have experience building that company from 0 to 1, or people who have experience within the AI or digital agent space. I think is super beneficial. So that's one type of investor I think that I have always liked, is just someone who's like really, and then you've got the other investor who is just the connector. They just know everyone and anyone. You're like, oh, do you know anyone from this company or anyone from that company? And they give you their emails, their numbers, they do email intros. That investor is so valuable as well. So really, people with a really big network are always super helpful too. So for me, in my experience so far anyways, those are the two types of investors that I personally find have been super helpful. And then maybe the third would just be someone that has a complementary skill set to our team. So if I look at Delaney, my co-founder, and I, what are those areas that we aren't as strong in? Then it would be helpful to have an investor come in that has that skill set. So those are the three kind of buckets that I would evaluate investors myself, whether or not they'd be a good fit.
Super helpful. And I think your assessment is spot on. And so building on that, then managing investor expectations is really important, whether you're an angel, but then my experience has been as the stakes change, the bigger the financing rounds. I'd love to get your take. How do you think about managing expectations of generating a return for the people who've given you their money as compared to doing what's best for the company?
It's tough. It's tough. So before working at Rewind, I was at Shopify, which is a public company, and I was working on their finance team. And a lot of what I did was work on the forecast, right? And what do we share with the public in terms of expectations? And one thing I've learned over the years, it is much better to be very conservative and realistic with whatever you're putting out there, and then to beat those expectations than the other way around, where you make it seem like everything is going to be rainbows and butterflies, and then quarter after quarter your reporting misses. So I would say for me, the best thing you can do is just be very realistic with where you think the company will end up, and then even reduce that a little bit. Go like 10% under. And maybe initially the investors won't like what they see, but it's much better to work with, in my opinion, a team and a founder that's constantly meeting expectations or surpassing them than being overly optimistic and missing every single quarter. And so my approach has always been try to be super conservative with your first estimate and whatever you're reporting. And then from there, it just makes your life easier. It makes investors happier. You become a more trusting founder, and long-term people will just trust you and believe you a lot more. And that goes a long way. So that's my advice.
I love it. Under promise, over deliver. We got enough things on our plates as founders to then have to stress out about helping or meeting some stretch goal. Probably don't need it on the plate. So with that, then one of the things that I think about is whether you're looking out quarterly, mid-year, or the entire year, you got to make budget decisions around product development, sales and marketing. And I've participated before in debates between, hey, let's just build a phenomenal product and word of mouth will bring our customers to us, versus people say, hey, MVP and maybe a couple features that the market's telling us are key is good enough, but let's go heavy on our sales channels. Where do you fall on? I'll just throw out, not suggesting it's binary, but would love to get your perspective of how you think at an early stage right now where you're best betting your chips.
We've been doing the latter of what you just said. So we definitely went the let's build an MVP. Let's just go after different customers, try to sell, and then build a product from there. So, in fact, our first customer that we signed, we didn't even have a product. We were like, this is an idea that we have. Are you interested? And we were very honest about what the first version would look like, which was not great. And then we just asked, what is this worth to you? How much would you pay? And they told us what they would pay, and that's what we accepted. And today, 6 months later, we are actually charging 20 times what we had first charged that first customer. And at first it was a bit crappy because we had signed sometimes like a multi-month contract, and it was super cheap. And then we were tied for, let's say, 6 months at this really low rate, when maybe 3 months in, we were able to charge 3 times more. But the nice thing was, we were able to get confidence very early on that people were willing to pay for this thing that we had in mind, right? And obviously, the more you work with them, the more they tell you, okay, I want this. Oh, actually, I thought it would be like this. I want this. And they really establish the roadmap for you. And the more features and the more things that you build, then you can charge more and more. And so, again, some people told me, oh, you were way undercharging yourself. You should have asked for way more from the get-go. But I actually disagree, because those early wins were what we needed to keep going. And I'm not a risky person. Like, I was not in the business of spending 6 months building this very intricate thing. And if anything, I think that would have been a bad move, because what we thought we were going to build in our first month is completely different than what we're building today. And so if we had spent 6 months spending 50K building this platform, I think it would have been a disaster, and it would have been 50K down the drain, because we didn't really actually know what our customers wanted until we had that first very ugly version out being used. I would actually recommend, when starting out, try to just get something in front of someone as fast as possible, and try to charge as early as possible. And don't worry about it being perfect. Your version of perfect could be completely useless. You know what I mean? That's my approach, and that's what we did. And so far it's going well. So I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Great. I applaud the approach. If you think about the risks that's associated with getting the company off the ground, generally speaking, my experience or what I've seen is companies go out of business because they just don't have cash. And if you're focused on sales and marketing, hey, presuming you got something that people are willing to pay for, when you start to solve one of your biggest problems, that's, hey, how do I get to the next chapter?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, nothing's saying you can't pivot once you have established yourself in the market. So that's brilliant. Something you said earlier, I heard a reference to ROI, making sure that you're getting, I think you said $3 back for a dollar that we spend. Would love to get your perspective on, to the extent that you're using any quantifiable metrics to guide your business decisions.
For now, since we started, because we're bootstrapped, the nice thing has been that we've been able to charge all of our customers up front and then be completely customer funded. Since we started, that was our goal, was we don't even need to take out any money of our own, and we can just be fully customer funded, which has been the case so far. I think we're getting to a point now where, going back to the ROI thing, once we figure out the channels that work consistently, then we're going to start investing more heavily and maybe taking out some of our own money and going, okay, we know that this channel is going to work. Let's put 10, 20K in there. So far, I would say we've still been very much in the testing stage of trying different things like cold calling, things like content on LinkedIn, things like maybe paid ads soon. I don't know. We're testing a few different channels out, but I would say some metrics, at least in my previous jobs, that we would look at often would be like LTV to CAC. So that just means, okay, looking at the lifetime value of a customer. So let's just say on average, you can make $1,000 per customer when they join, right? Really, it should only cost a third of that to acquire them, right? You want your lifetime value to be 3 times that of what it costs you to acquire them. So that is one metric that I always like to look at, just ROI, and what is the cost of acquiring someone compared to how much revenue they're bringing you. That was a popular one. I'm trying to think. Payback was another one. So payback period is what we called it. And it's similar. It just means, okay, let's say it costs you $10 to acquire someone. How many months does it take for them to pay off that initial investment to acquire them? So a good payback period, I think when you're first getting started, probably under 6 months. For a very established company like Rewind and the Shopifys of the world, you're probably looking at anything under 20 months is considered quite good. But I think when you're a startup, you obviously want to be able to turn that cash around quickly. So even under 3 months would be awesome. So hypothetically speaking, if we're making on average $2,000 per customer, you'd really be willing to spend a third of that on acquiring them. And that just means that after 3 months of, 3 months of them being around, you're break even, you're not losing money on that customer. Yeah, those are a few metrics that I guess I'd look at from a go-to-market standpoint.
So hats off. I think those are brilliant metrics to look at, especially for benefit of our founders. And if you look at something like CAC payback period, and if you think of it really practically, what's the difference between 3 and 20 months? It frankly is the amount of cash you need to run your business.
Yeah.
And what I found is that translates into when you're starting off, I think it makes sense to sell to small and medium-sized businesses because the sales cycles are shorter and you have to invest less in acquiring those businesses as compared to the Shopifys of the world, who, in order to make numbers that are consistent with a public company, you find yourself just selling larger and larger organizations. And by consequence, enterprise sales cycles are generally materially longer than small and medium-sized businesses. I think some great strategic insight into the benchmarks that you're using. That's great.
Yeah. And then of course there's churn, right? Like, how sticky are your customers? When you acquire one, do they stick around or do they leave after a month or two? I think in early days, obviously, churn's a trickier one because you're trying to balance having realistic expectations with a product, but you're also trying to convince someone to sign on when you don't have much to show for. Churn's a big one, of course. And then I think after a year or two, net dollar retention is another one that at least I used to look at a lot in my previous roles, which is just of your existing customers over time, are they spending more money with you or less money with you? And that's another thing that with this product that we're building, we're just trying to find ways to, again, just make everything stickier, make people happier. How do you get people to spend more? Obviously, you build a better product. Yeah, those are maybe two more that I would just call out as good ones to keep an eye on.
I both totally agree. Both brilliant metrics to understand practically how business decisions are impacting the company's finances and client cohorts. Been a great podcast. Before we wrap up, I'd love to get your perspective as you reflect back as an angel investor and now as a founder building product. If you can go back and give yourself any advice when you first get started, what would you share?
Ooh, as a founder, I would say it's not as risky as you think. There are ways to start a company without all the risk. And I would say for me, that was building and testing a product on a problem that I was facing myself. It was finding customers and getting them to pay as fast as possible. It was not quitting my day job until I had that product market fit and that traction and recurring sales motion going. So I would say hindsight, I think I had wanted to start a business for years and years. And in my head, it was always all or nothing. Like there was no in between. And I learned it doesn't have to be like that. So if I had to tell another founder, there is a very kind of risk averse way of going about it. And then as an investor, I would say, yeah, it's tough. I would say trust your gut, trust the people, invest in the founders. Don't just invest in the numbers and don't scare off about competition. Like I actually think competition is very positive because it means that you are solving a problem that matters to people versus oftentimes if there's no competition at all, it's because no one cares about it. And going back to the founder thing, like the hardest thing I think as a founder is just problem solving constantly and finding ways out of problems. If your business starts to decline or if someone doesn't want your product, you just have to pivot, do something different. And at the end of the day, the people who are problem solvers and persevere, they're going to figure out a way to build that multi-million-dollar business. There's no doubt. So going back to the founders, you just want to invest in people who you believe in and are going to just keep problem solving until they figure it out, because they will. And regardless of competition, regardless of even the traction today, it is not the best predictor of future success. So yeah, that's one thing I would keep in mind for future investing myself.
Fantastic. Danica, if there's anyone who would like to potentially join the team, get a demo of the product, investors who are interested in learning more about the company, how can they get hold of you?
Yeah, you can definitely easily book a demo on our website, bahia.ai. We are, both me and my co-founder are on LinkedIn, so you can find me at Danika Chilibeck, and Delaney Thompson is my co-founder. Connect with us on LinkedIn, send us a message. We are also posting videos and building in public on LinkedIn. So if people want to follow along our story and what we're doing, just follow us or connect with us on LinkedIn is probably the best way. We are on LinkedIn every hour of the day. So yeah, definitely don't hesitate to reach out.
Fantastic. You heard it. Follow her. All right. Danica, thank you. Really appreciate your time. Ton of great insight in here. I know our audience is generally going to enjoy this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kristian, for having me. It's been really fun. Appreciate it.
Kristian Marquez here. Thank you so much for listening to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. If you're a successful founder or an investor who would like to be on the podcast, please visit podcast.finstratmgmt.com/podcast-guest. If you've got something out of this interview, please share this episode on social media. If you know someone that would be a great guest, please tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Innovators and Investors. I'd love to see your posts and suggestions. We're regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you catch each new episode, please subscribe to the Innovators and Investors Podcast. And your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and it means a lot to me and my team. Would you like to know more? Go to our website, finstratmgmt.com, or follow us on LinkedIn or on X. Our handle is @finstratmgmt. This is Kristian Marquez. Thank you for listening. Until next time.